Mobbing deep, not to be confused with the group Mobb Deep, is the act of going somewhere with a bunch of people. And from the time I started writing in 1996, mobbing deep was one of my favorite ways to go out and bomb. But it wasn't the only way that I got down, and I also used to go out and bomb with smaller groups of people. But how were these experiences different? What were the pros and cons of both, and which one did I prefer? But before discussing these two approaches, some of you guys might wonder, did I ever go out and bomb by myself? And in the 90s, absolutely, I would go out there and hit up by myself from time to time. But I can't say it was my least favorite approach. I always liked having other people in the mix, and it was something I only ever really did when I was in transit going from point A to point B. And at the end of the day, if an opportunity presented itself to get up, I was taking it regardless of who was there. But from very early on in my time as a writer, I came to appreciate going out and bombing with a bunch of people. As I've talked about before, I got my start as a writer in late August or early September 1996. But a bunch of my friends, including my best friend E at that time, had already been writing for a couple of months when I got my start. By the time I got my start, this collection of writers was already 10 or 15 people deep. And all of us all lived around the way from each other. We all lived within minutes of each other, and we'd link up on Courtland and Mission to go bomb. And at the very start of all this, fools didn't even need to call each other up or make plans. I simply would just go down to Courtland and Mission. I would see DI, I would see Ace, I would see the homeboy E, and I would see Prayer, and I just ask, what's up? Are we gonna go bomb? Dolk would be there as well, and he was something like a mentor to us. And he'd ask about our progression, he'd ask about us practicing, and ask about us getting up especially. And in the fall of 1996, when I go down to Courtland and Mission, it wasn't uncommon for 24 writers to be kicking it, sitting on those benches right there, leaning up against Zante's and eating some pizza, and especially catching outsider shots on buses. And a lot of our plans sprang up spontaneously on that corner, and we'd just all link up and figure out what we were gonna do. And if we wanted to just catch some quick outsider shots, I'd be tasked with getting on the bus and starting a convo with the driver. And the whole time I'd be doing all this, the homeboys would be outside crushing the bus. And anytime I did this successfully, it made me feel more a part of the group, more bound to the group, and more invested in us all getting up. But we knew that we couldn't really just linger on that corner and catch outsider shots all day and not have the cops show up. And inevitably somebody would ask, what's up? Who's trying to bus hop? And like 5 to 10 of us off top would be down. As a side note, rolling this deep could actually be detrimental to bus hopping, because if a bus driver saw you with this many people, they might not let you on the bus. And you might be forced to just hit up some outsider shots regardless because you weren't getting on a bus with that many people. And if you did get on a bus, you can almost be guaranteed that you were gonna be watched the whole time you were on it. And I can't even really fault the bus drivers for doing this. We were pretty much advertising that we were writers, and they knew what we were gonna do before we ever did it. So when we were bus hopping this deep, it meant we couldn't really go all that far from where we started. And that's because usually we'd get on the bus, and as soon as the bus started moving, we'd ring the bell to get off it. And when the bus was only a few feet away from its next stop, we'd start crushing that thing like crazy. It was very hot, it was very obvious, and everybody on the bus saw us do it. And because we were able to get off the bus and get on the next one very fast, nothing ever caught up to us. And last week, I released a video about dealing with heroes in the 90s. And I can also say that being this deep meant you never had to deal with them. And really the only way that a hero would step to 10 or 15 plus people was with a firearm. So while I'm sure there were plenty of heroes that saw us crushing buses like this that wanted to step to us, none ever did. And us moving around like this, going bus to bus, hopping buses all day, hitting corners all day, catching tags all day, generated a lot of solidarity and just this feeling of togetherness that I miss. In the early days that I was tagging, this feeling was very present, and I felt it every time I went out with a bunch of people. Pretty much everybody I wrote with all belonged to the same crews. We're all involved in the same things, and we pushed all these things collectively. And during one of these bus hopping or bombing missions, you'd look on either side of you, see somebody smiling, see somebody happy, see somebody crushing. There's nothing that feels like that. And I know that a lot of you guys watching this video, especially a lot of you guys that are younger, will never feel this. And if you don't know anybody who tags where you live, you can't roll deep. You can't roll with 10 other people. There aren't 10 other people. So you guys are really missing out on what we experienced. And it wasn't just Graff or us hitting up, it was our whole lifestyle. It was our dress, it was how we wore our backpacks, it was our slang, it was the music that we listened to. It was doing everything collectively, eating together, tagging together, and saying peace to everybody and doing it the next day. And I use the term togetherness, but a better term for this might be brotherhood. And the fact that we were doing something illegal that was frowned upon made this feeling of brotherhood even stronger. And in addition to doing everything together, we felt like we had to do it now. Our crews had to run, we had to run, and we were supporting each other in this pursuit. And in having all these people around, all moving together, all supporting each other and pursuing the same goal, to me, it felt like family. And you can find all kinds of people out in the streets looking exactly for this feeling. And a lot of us in Graff are looking for it too. But unfortunately, this feeling of brotherhood, of collective action, of collective urgency did not last. And that's possibly due to a bunch of reasons. Damn near everybody I started out with all got busted all on the same day about 5 or 6 months into my time as a writer. All these dudes all caught a case and they all ended up on probation, and the majority of them did not tag afterwards. But there's also something to be said about something new and the excitement of getting caught up in something new. And after like 6 months of going out en masse, everybody going out super deep, it wasn't new any longer. And once most of my friends were out of the mix, I stopped rolling with a bunch of people and started moving with a smaller group. But it's a lot easier to ensure trust, it's a lot easier to keep secrets, and it's a lot easier to stay under the radar without 10 people going everywhere you go. And even though I absolutely love crushing buses and hitting the streets with a bunch of other people, my favorite time I ever had tagging only involved one other person. And this time was when me and the homeboy K were heading out to the Sunset, we're heading out to Lowell High School to go kick it, and we crushed the back of an M all by ourselves within just a couple of minutes. A bunch of people ended up seeing that train and giving us props, and they figured we had to have a bunch of people with us to crush like that. But because we got on that train in a low-key fashion and just picked the right moment to do our thing, we did the work of 10 riders with just 2. On the flip side, rolling around with less people did mean more hero danger was possible. However, if you were only with 5 people instead of 10, most heroes would have fell back and just left you alone anyway. And during the later parts of my time as a rider, usually I might only have like 3 people with me tops. I lived within 10 minutes of all 3 of them, and we all rode the same buses. We're all very dedicated to tagging. And despite the fact that me and Sins were in crews that battled each other, we were very cool with each other as well, and we go bus hop even during the middle of a battle. And while in these later missions we didn't have that feeling of urgency and we didn't really have the feeling of brotherhood, we still had a lot of fun. We still caused a lot of damage. And whether you're moving with a bunch of people or just a few, Graff is still Graff. We loved it all the same. But even if it was a little easier to move around with less people and we still got up, that feeling of brotherhood, of urgency will always stick out to me. It's always gonna be something I seek out in my life. And I'm very glad to have experienced that when I did. And for anybody looking for that same feeling, that same solidarity, I'd urge you to find it. But I do have to say there's a great chance you won't find it in Graff. Over the last couple of decades, there's been advances in technology that makes the experience I had not really possible. And really the only time people could come back together and bomb en masse was during the pandemic. Some of these bombing sessions have ended up in the news, but other ones have flown under the radar. But ultimately, Graff in life is unpredictable. And eventually some of you guys watching this video might get your chance to mob super deep and crush. But if you do experience that feeling, enjoy it while it lasts. Try to replicate it if you can in other parts of your life.